Hey everyone, it's Mel again, and it's time for a Sailor Moon Crystal recap. This video is for Act 20, titled Crystal Tokyo, King Endymion, which aired April 18th, 2015. Now, the only reason I'm going back to recap this episode instead of just waiting for Act 21 to air is because in the classics, one of my favorite episodes was the episode where the Sailor Scouts travel to the future and learn just who Chibi Yusa was. Also, I just wanted to say right off the bat that I haven't read the manga. I've only read the first arc with Queen Beryl and Metalia. I want to see this arc play out first in the animation before I go back and read the manga for it. The only spoiler information I know is whatever was shown in the Sailor Moon Classics version, which is the 1990s animation. And just on another side note, in Act 19, when the twin Boule brothers were introduced by Esmeralda, I just couldn't help but think of chemistry class when their names were said. Chiral and achiral were the names of the Boule brothers, but aren't those terms in chemistry in regards to stereoisomers and symmetry in molecular compounds? Anyways, I'll stop being a science nerd and get back on point, but I just wondered if anyone else picked up on that. So, Act 20 picks up where Act 19 left off, and that's in the Silver Millennium Palace they're in the 30th century Crystal Tokyo. Chibi Yusa had just introduced Sailor Moon, Sailor Venus, Tuxedo Mask, Luna, and Artemis to her sleeping mother, who is Neo Queen Serenity, and she is encased by a crystal shield courtesy of the legendary Silver Crystal. Shortly after that, the spirit of King Endymion appears, and Chibi Yusa calls him Dad. King Endymion gives a proper welcome before confirming that he is the future version of Tuxedo Mask. He then confirms that his unconscious wife, Neo Queen Serenity, is a future version of Sailor Moon, and that they are both the parents of Chibi Yusa, who formally introduced herself as Usagi Small Lady Serenity. Some comedic fun was had here in regards to the reactions of Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask when they heard this news. King Endymion actually explains quite a few things in this episode. The first was the destruction of 30th century Crystal Tokyo. The second was of the Silver Millennium reign before the destruction happened. And then the third was of planet Nemesis and those associated with the Black Moon. And then finally he talks about Sailor Pluto. So in regards to the destruction of 30th century Crystal Tokyo, it was caused by a huge explosion that destroyed everything but the Crystal Palace. Everyone was hit and put to sleep but Chibi Yusa and Diana, which is the daughter of Artemis and Luna. And however, before Neo Queen Serenity was hit, she was encased in the crystal shield, and after that, grave silence soon followed the attack. King Endymion then explains how he believed Chibi Yusa went to the past for help after he's told her many times before about her mother's time as Sailor Moon. With that said, does that mean the whole time that Chibi Yusa was in the past, she knew that Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask were her parents? Did she know that she was taunting and causing her future mother to be jealous? Chibi Yusa of this version seems to know a lot more than her counterpart in the classics. Does anyone else agree? So anyways, when asked by Tuxedo Mask why he hasn't aged, King Endymion goes into the long life that the Silver Millennium was blessed with because of the Silver Crystal. Neo Queen Serenity was crowned when she was 22 after she gave birth to Chibi Yusa, and she hasn't aged since. Power of the crystal extended to King Endymion because he was part of the Silver Millennium family. So after they took the throne in the 21st century, an era of long life had begun in Crystal Tokyo, granting long life and peace to humanity. However, that peace on Earth was shattered when the black megalith appeared after the explosion. The black megalith siphons energy from Earth and it takes people too as it distorts the space around it. It's kind of like it's feeding off them, essentially. So then Sailor Venus then brings up the Black Moon's connection to all the mayhem, causing King Endymion to bring up the planet Nemesis. Now, planet Nemesis is, and I quote, an illusionary planet of darkness with an orbit that is impossible to calculate. Apparently, a lone criminal from centuries ago was exiled to Nemesis, and after that, the planet was left unchecked for centuries as it was known as the Forbidden Planet. But in the 30th century, Nemesis was hijacked by the Black Moon, which was a militant group that renounced Crystal Tokyo's long-lived society. The group started lots of conflicts and committed mass murders. And then after the Black Moon settled on Nemesis, they attacked the Earth with the goal of destroying it before taking it as their own. King Endymion believes that if the Black Moon has Sailor Mars, Mercury, and Jupiter, then they could be held on Nemesis. Before anything could happen, Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask start to feel the strain of being in close proximity to their future selves, so it's important that they return to the past immediately. Before leaving, though, Tuxedo Mask promises King Endymion that he will protect Chibiusa with his life. While making their way to the space-time door, King Endymion talks about Sailor Pluto and how she is a different mission from Princess Serenity's four guardians. He said, and I quote, "She is descended from Kronos, the god that controls time, the beautiful solitary guardian of the door at its space between times. Sailor Pluto has always been responsible for the space-time door, and she has lived longer than anyone. She has also experienced every era." King Endymion goes on to say that Sailor Pluto is someone Sailor Moon could trust. In this moment, if King Endymion wasn't the future version of Tuxedo Mask, I would have thought that something more could have happened between Sailor Pluto and King Endymion. Did anyone else pick up on that, or is it just me? Anyways, due to the situation, King Endymion gets a space-time key from Sailor Pluto for Sailor Moon to have, and then they are sent back to the past. I just want to say that I like the addition of Sailor Pluto having this belt that holds all these different keys. I thought that was a great touch, or at least a great difference from the classics. But anyway, they return to the past isn't a happy one, as Tuxedo Mask and Sailor Moon get into a disagreement about Chibiusa that results in Sailor Moon running off. While the jealous response would seem immature in any other case, Usagi's inner monologue explains that she's not jealous by Mamoru's protection for Chibiusa. She's just upset that Mamoru didn't suggest that she and him can both protect Chibiusa together. After that was explained, her reaction is definitely appropriate. Of course, she'd want to not just protect their own future child, but she'd want to do it with him. So the fact that he wants to do it on his own, it makes sense why she'd be hurt by that. So the next day, Mamoru finds Chibiusa gone, and we see her back in the future after her brief visit with Sailor Pluto. Chibiusa goes to visit her sleeping family before she stops at her mother's bedside. After her visit, she gets ambushed by Esmeralda, who asks Prince Endymion for a second chance. Now, this ambush is happening outside Crystal Tokyo's palace, or Crystal Palace. So with the enhancements that Wiseman bestowed upon Esmeralda, she uses them against Chibiusa. Sailor Moon, Sailor Venus, and Tuxedo Mask intervene and rescue Chibiusa, only to have Esmeralda attack them and steal their energy after Sailor Moon's halation attack fails. While captured, Tuxedo Mask gets help from King Endymion, and together they killed Esmeralda. I think that only happened because King Endymion was helping Tuxedo Mask with the attack, and since Neo Queen Serenity is unconscious, she's not able to help Sailor Moon in her attack, and since Sailor Moon has no support from the future, her powers from the past won't work. Is that a sound theory to go with? Because that's the only one I've come up with. Anyway, so Sailor Moon is also wondering why her powers didn't work after Esmeralda is killed, but then she remembers that Chibiusa said that the silver crystal only works in its own time, so the past crystal can't work in the future. Again, more confusion brought on by time travel, but it brings so many possibilities too, so it's a balancing act, I guess. Anyways, the fight isn't over as Prince Demond and Wiseman appear, and Prince Demond uses the power of his third eye to hypnotize and trap Sailor Moon in his grasp. And the episode ends there. And while I hate cliffhangers because now I have to wait 2 weeks for the next episode, cliffhangers are just one example as to how different this version is from the classics, which had everything practically wrapped up in a bow by the end of the episode, unless it was one of the final battles, and of course it would span over like 2 or 3 episodes. Despite the absence of Sailor Mars, Mercury, and Jupiter, I actually liked that there was so few of their group that traveled to the future, unlike in the classics when all of them jumped forward. And the pacing of the episode was great, as there seems to be little to no fillers in scenes. They all seem to have a purpose in moving the story forward or providing an understanding of a certain part of the story. And then the overall story or for the arc at least, has had a great pace within episodes and what is actually featured in which episode, instead of having it scattered, if that makes sense. This episode particularly definitely has me wondering how much Chibiusa knows about time traveling and what she did know going into it. But anyways, in regards to predictions, I only have what the preview showed us at the end of the episode. So with that said, Prince Timon still has Sailor Moon as his hostage. Chibiusa seemed to feel alone and guilty, especially in regards to the silver crystal. And I guess I'm going to use the classics as a reference, but I believe Chibiusa is the reason why the silver crystal has disappeared, or why she needed to get the past crystal to begin with. And then I believe we may get some flashbacks of Chibiusa with her parents before the huge explosion that put them to sleep. So what did you guys think of the episode? What do you guys think is going to happen next? Which version of this arc do you prefer, this one or the 1990s version? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your day. See you guys next time for Act 21. Bye.